The doors of the Grand Assembly were taller than any building on Earth. Commander Park Yuna stood before them and felt very small. That was the point, she knew. The Vorath Collective had built this place to make visitors feel like insects. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her afraid. "Ready, Commander?" Captain Lee Tejo asked from beside her. His hand rested near his sidearm out of habit. They both knew weapons would be useless here. "I was born ready," Yuna said. It was a lie. No one was ready for this. But she had learned long ago that confidence was a mask you wore until it became real. The massive doors slid open with a sound like thunder. Yuna walked forward into the light. The Grand Assembly was a sphere carved from a small moon. Thousands of seats rose up the curved walls in every direction. Aliens of 6 different species filled those seats. Some had scales, some had too many eyes, some floated in tanks of strange liquid. All of them looked down at the small group of humans walking across the central platform. Yuna heard whispers in languages her translator could not fully process. She caught fragments, words like primitive and animals and waste of time. She kept her face calm and empty. She had expected nothing less. At the center of the platform stood a podium made of black crystal. Behind it, on a throne that seemed grown from living metal, sat High Arbiter Morvax. He was tall and thin, with gray skin pulled tight over sharp bones. His eyes were like pools of oil, dark and deep and cold. "You are the human speaker?" Morvax asked. His voice was smooth and bored, like a teacher forced to deal with a slow child. "I am Commander Park Yuna of the United Earth Fleet," she replied. "I carry the voice of 8 billion humans. I thank the collective for granting us this audience." "Granted is a strong word," Morvax said. "We grew tired of your requests. It was easier to hear you once than to keep refusing." Laughter rippled through the assembly. Yuna heard Tejo's breath catch with anger behind her. She did not react. "I understand," Yuna said. "I will be brief." She touched the control panel on her wrist. A holographic display appeared in the air above the platform, showing star maps and documents. "Humanity requests formal recognition as a sovereign species under galactic law. We request fair trade agreements with member species. We request that collective forces stop entering the Sol sector without permission." She paused. "And we request the return of 3 human colony ships seized by collective patrols 14 months ago. Those ships carried 12,000 civilians, including many children. We want them back." The assembly was quiet for a moment. Then Morvax began to laugh. It was not a cruel laugh. It was worse than that. It was the laugh of someone who found a child's drawing amusing. There was no respect in it at all. "Requests," Morvax repeated. "The humans make requests." He rose from his throne and walked toward Yuna. He was nearly 3 meters tall. He looked down at her like she was something stuck to his shoe. "Your species has existed for less time than this station has stood empty between sessions," Morvax said. "You have no history, no culture worth preserving. You fight among yourselves like animals. You poison your own world. You cannot even agree on basic truths." He gestured at the assembly around them. "The Vorath Collective has maintained peace for 12,000 years. We have seen species like yours rise and fall 100 times. You are not special. You are not interesting. You are a brief mistake of evolution, and you will be forgotten." Yuna said nothing. She waited. "Here is what we offer," Morvax continued. "Humanity will become a vassal species under our protection. You will surrender your military vessels. You will accept guidance from the elder races. In exchange, we will allow you to continue existing." "And our people on those ships?" Yuna asked. "They will remain in quarantine until we decide what to do with them. Their genetics may prove useful for study." Behind her, Tejo took a step forward. Dr. Shin Yunji grabbed his arm and held him back. Yuna looked up at Morvax. Her face was still calm. Her voice was still soft. "I must decline your offer," she said. More laughter from the assembly. Morvax smiled with too many teeth. "You decline? Little human, you do not have the power to decline. You do not have the power to do anything. You came here to beg, and we have answered. Go home. Tell your people to prepare for vassalage. It is the kindest fate you could hope for." Yuna nodded slowly, as if considering his words. Then she turned to face the full assembly. Thousands of alien eyes stared down at her. "I want the record to show," she said, her voice carrying across the vast chamber, "that I came here in peace. I asked politely. I made reasonable requests. I offered friendship." She turned back to Morvax. "I want the record to show that you refused, that you laughed, that you threatened my people and held our children hostage." She paused. "I want the record to show that this was me being kind." Morvax's smile flickered for just a moment. Something in her voice had touched something old and buried in his memory. A warning from long ago, perhaps, about cornered animals. Then the moment passed, and he waved his hand dismissively. "Leave," he said. "Come back when your species has learned its place." Yuna bowed her head politely. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her delegation followed in silence. The doors closed behind them with a boom that echoed through the station. Taiho was shaking with anger. "What do we do now?" he demanded. "They have our people. They laughed at us." Yuna kept walking. Her face was no longer calm. There was something cold in her eyes now, something that had been waiting for a long time. "Now," she said quietly, "we show them what politeness costs." The HSS Resolve cut through dark space like a knife through water. Commander Yuna stood alone in her quarters, looking out at the endless stars. Somewhere out there, 12,000 of her people waited in cold sleep, wondering if anyone would come for them. She would come for them. She had always known it would come to this. A soft chime announced a visitor. "Enter," she said without turning. Dr. Shin Yunji stepped inside. She was a small woman with tired eyes and hands that never stopped moving. She carried a datapad pressed against her chest like a shield. "The crew is angry," Yunji said. "Taiho wants to hit something, preferably something Vorath." "He will get his chance," Yuna replied. "Is everything ready?" "It has been ready for 60 years. Yunji moved to stand beside her commander. "Do you want to tell me about it now? The real plan?" Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Then she began to speak. "When I was 4 years old," she said, "the Vorath came to our outer colonies. They said they wanted to test us, to see if we were worth talking to." Her voice was flat, like she was reading from a report. "They released something they called a cleansing swarm, billions of tiny machines that ate everything organic. 4 million people died in 3 days. My grandmother was one of them." Yunji said nothing. She had heard pieces of this story before, but never from Yuna herself. "The collective watched us struggle," Yuna continued. "They expected us to fall apart, to surrender, to prove that we were the weak animals they believed us to be." She finally turned to look at Yunji. "We did not fall apart." "The miracle of Colony 7, Yunji said softly. "There was no miracle. Just desperate people who refused to die." Yuna walked to her desk and activated a hidden display. Old footage appeared in the air. Burning cities, people fighting with farming tools and mining equipment. Scientists working in bunkers while the world ended above them. In 18 days, our scientists figured out how to stop the swarm. In 30 days, we had learned to turn it against itself. By day 40, we had captured Vorath soldiers and broken their communication codes. Yuna's jaw tightened. The collective did not expect that. They called a ceasefire and left. They assumed we would collapse without them. "But we didn't," Yunji said. "No. We did something much more dangerous. We learned. Yuna changed the display. Now it showed blueprints, research data, weapon designs, thousands of files scrolling past. For 60 years, humanity has been preparing, quietly, secretly. We studied every species in the collective. We found their weaknesses. We built countermeasures. We hid our true strength. Yunji stared at the data. She was a scientist, and she recognized the scale of what she was seeing. This is everything. Their shield frequencies, their ship designs, their communication networks. Everything, Yuna confirmed. The collective thinks we have 200 ships, old ships with weak weapons and slow engines. She smiled for the first time since leaving the assembly. They are wrong. On the bridge, Captain Taiho gathered the senior officers for a briefing. His arm was still sore from where Yunji had grabbed him in the assembly, but his anger had cooled into something sharper, something patient. The commander has authorized Protocol Kindness, he announced. The officers exchanged looks. They knew the name but not the details. It had been nothing but a rumor for years. "What is Protocol Kindness?" asked Lieutenant Cho Mirai, the communications officer. "It's the end of hiding," Taiho said. He pulled up a star map showing the space between Earth and the collective border. Hundreds of locations were marked in red. "For 60 years, we've been building ships in secret, in asteroid fields, inside gas giants, in the dark spaces between stars where no one looks." New icons appeared on the map. Not hundreds, thousands. 2,300 ships, Taiho said. Full combat ready. Weapon systems the collective has never seen. Engines twice as fast as anything they have. Mirai's eyes went wide. How did we hide this? We let them believe what they wanted to believe. Taiho crossed his arms. They thought we were primitive. They never bothered to look closely. They saw what they expected to see, and we used their arrogance against them. In her quarters, Yuna finished her briefing with Yunji. We never wanted war, Yuna said. We asked to be left alone. We tried diplomacy. We tried patience. She shook her head. They taught us that mercy is mistaken for weakness out here. They taught us that polite words mean nothing to those who only understand power. So we show them power, Yunji said. No. Yuna's voice was cold now. We show them restraint. We show them exactly how much damage we could do if we chose to. We show them that every moment they are not burning is because we allow it. She met Yunji's eyes. That is protocol kindness. We could destroy them. We will choose not to. And that choice will terrify them more than any weapon. Yunji understood then why Yuna had been chosen for this mission. It was not because she was the best fighter or the smartest tactician. It was because she knew how to make mercy look like a threat. The fleet is waiting for your order, Yunji said. Yuna nodded. She walked to the communication panel and opened a channel to every hidden ship humanity had built. 2,000 captains waited in silence for her voice. This is Commander Park Yuna, she said. The time for hiding is over. Activate all ships, move to designated positions. We begin in 12 hours. She paused, thinking of her grandmother, thinking of 4 million graves on 3 dead colonies, thinking of 12,000 hostages in cold sleep. They wanted to see what humanity could do, she said. Show them. The Vorath border station Keshin 7 was considered one of the most secure military posts in the galaxy. It had 300 crew members, heavy shields, and enough weapons to destroy a small moon. It had never been attacked in 800 years of service. At exactly midnight Galactic Standard Time, every light on the station went dark. The commander, a tall Vorath named Pression, woke to the sound of alarms that lasted only 2 seconds before they too went silent. Emergency power did not activate. Backup systems did not respond. The station drifted in complete darkness. Then a voice came through every speaker on the station, a calm female voice speaking perfect Vorath. This is Commander Park Yuna of the United Earth Fleet. Your station has been disabled. Your weapons are offline. Your communications are blocked. You have 30 minutes to evacuate to your escape pods. This is not a request. Prescian reached for his personal communicator. Dead. He tried the backup in his desk. Dead. He stumbled to the door and forced it open manually, stepping into a corridor lit only by dim emergency strips. Around him, his crew was already moving toward the escape pod bays. No one was fighting. There was nothing to fight with. "How is this possible?" Prescian whispered to the darkness. The darkness did not answer. Across collective space, 16 other military stations went dark at the same moment. No explosions, no casualties, just silence and confusion and the calm voice of a human commander telling them to leave. High Arbiter Morvax received the news in his private chambers. His first reaction was disbelief. His second was rage. "Impossible!" he snarled at the messenger. "Our stations cannot be disabled by primitive human technology." "They have been disabled, High Arbiter," the messenger said. His voice was shaking. "All 17 stations in the border network. And there is more." "More?" The messenger's face went pale. "The Morvax shield network around the capital sector. It is no longer responding." Morvax felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. The Morvax shield network was the crown jewel of collective defense. Named after his own family, it had protected the heart of their territory for 3,000 years. No weapon had ever damaged it. No enemy had ever passed through it. And now, somehow, humans had turned it off. "Sound the war alert," Morvax ordered. "Call every ship to defensive positions. Find these humans and destroy them." But the worst news was still coming. 3 hours after the stations went dark, the collective flagship Eternal Dominion, the largest warship in the galaxy, reported a security breach. Unknown forces had boarded the vessel. The crew fought back, but the attackers moved through the ship like ghosts. They knew every corridor, every door code, every security protocol. The Eternal Dominion's captain sent one final message before his ship's systems were taken over. "They are already inside." "They have always been inside. How do they know everything?" The answer came from Commander Yuna herself, broadcasting on every frequency the collective used. "Attention, citizens of the Voreth Collective. My name is Park Yuna. 60 years ago, your leaders tested humanity by killing 4 million of our people. They expected us to break. We did not break. We studied. We prepared. We waited." On the bridge of the HSS Resolve, Yuna stood before the main display. Around her, officers worked in focused silence, coordinating the largest military operation in human history. "Your intelligence believed humanity had 200 outdated ships," Yuna continued. "You believed wrong." She gave a signal. Across collective space, humanity's hidden fleet began to reveal itself. Ships emerged from asteroid fields and gas giant atmospheres. They rose from the dark spaces between stars where sensors never looked. They appeared in perfect formation at 17 strategic points. 2,300 ships, the largest human fleet ever assembled. "This is not an invasion," Yuna said. "This is a demonstration. Your stations are disabled but not destroyed. Your ships have been captured, but your crews are unharmed. We could have killed thousands today. We chose not to." On Vorath Prime, citizens looked up at their screens in shock. State media tried to claim it was a trick, but the evidence was everywhere. Human ships had passed through the impenetrable shield network like it was not there. They had captured the Eternal Dominion without firing a single lethal shot. "We do not want your empire," Yuna said. "We do not want your worlds. We want what we asked for: recognition, fair trade, an end to encroachment, and our people returned. That is all we have ever wanted." The broadcast ended. Silence fell across the collective. In the Grand Assembly, leaders of the 6 elder species gathered in emergency session. Morvax stood at the center, his face twisted with fury. "We must crush them," he declared. "This is an act of war. We have 10,000 ships to their 2,000. We will destroy them utterly." But the other species were not so sure. The Nethic's ambassador spoke quietly. "They could have killed our crews. They did not. They could have destroyed our stations. They did not." "Weakness," Morvax spat. "Or a message," the ambassador replied. "They showed us their strength and their mercy at the same time. They want us to know that destroying us is a choice they could make at any moment. Then we remove the choice." Morvax turned to the assembly. "I call for total war against humanity, all forces, all weapons. We end this now." The vote was close. 3 species supported him. 2 opposed. 1 abstained. But it was enough. War was declared. Yuna received the news with a sad nod. She had hoped it would not come to this. She had given them every chance. "They chose war," Tejo said. He did not sound happy about it. "Yes," Yuna replied. "And now we finish what they started 60 years ago." She looked out at the stars and thought about the 12,000 people still waiting in those cold sleep chambers. "Soon," she promised silently. "Very soon." "All ships," she ordered, "prepare for the counteroffensive. And remember, capture when possible, kill only when necessary. We are not monsters." She paused. "We are just very, very good at war." The collective fleet numbered 10,000 ships. They came from every corner of their territory, a great tide of metal and fire that had never known defeat. High Arbiter Morvax commanded them personally from his new flagship, the Unending Will. "Today we teach these animals their final lesson," he announced to his forces. "Leave no human ship intact. Leave no human alive. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who challenge the collective." His fleet advanced toward the human position near the Varus Nebula. Sensors showed the enemy clearly. 2,000 human vessels arranged in a defensive formation. They were outnumbered 5 to 1. Morvax smiled. This would be easy. He was wrong. On the bridge of the HSS Resolve, Commander Yuna watched the approaching enemy on her tactical display. 10,000 ships. It was an impressive number. It meant nothing. "Dr. Yunji," she said calmly, "are we receiving their communications?" "Every word, Commander." Yunji looked up from her console with a thin smile. "They still don't know we broke their encryption years ago. They're transmitting their attack plans in real time." "Share it with all captains. Let's show them what happens when you fight an enemy who knows your every move." The battle began. The collective fleet fired first. Thousands of weapons blazed across space, enough firepower to crack a planet. The light was blinding even through filtered view screens. When the light faded, the human fleet was still there. They had moved the moment the collective ships locked their weapons. Every shot missed. Morvax stared at his display in disbelief. "Fire again! All weapons!" The collective fired. The humans moved. The pattern repeated 3 more times before Morvax understood what was happening. "They know," he whispered. "They know what we're going to do before we do it." The human counterattack was precise and brutal. They did not fight like the collective expected. They did not form lines and exchange fire. They struck in small groups, hitting weak points, disabling engines and weapons, then moving on before the collective could respond. Captain Taiho led a squadron of fast attack ships on the left flank. His voice crackled over the communication channel, sharp and focused. "Squadron 7, target their formation core. Hit their command ships and watch them scatter." He guided his vessel through a storm of enemy fire, moving by instinct as much as skill. "Remember, disable, don't destroy. We want prisoners, not corpses." His ships cut through the collective formation like wolves through sheep. They struck at joints and seams at the places where the enemy was weakest. They fought like they had been preparing for this battle their entire lives. Because they had. 3 hours into the battle, the collective had lost 800 ships. Most were disabled and drifting, their crews waiting for rescue. Only a handful had been destroyed, and most of those were accidents, reactors that overloaded when systems failed. Humanity had lost 112 ships. Every loss hurt. Every dead crew member had a name and a family waiting at home. But they were winning. Morvax was desperate now. His perfect fleet was being taken apart piece by piece. He gave orders and watched them fail. He tried new strategies and watched humans counter them before they could begin. "Fall back to the secondary position," he commanded. "Regroup at the Vorath Prime defensive line." What remained of his fleet turned and ran. The humans did not chase them. They did not need to. Yuna watched the enemy retreat with no satisfaction. War was never something to celebrate. "Casualties?" she asked. 112 ships, Taiho reported. His voice was tired but steady. 3,400 crew. Most escape pods recovered. Yuna closed her eyes. 3,000 people dead because an alien politician had too much pride to listen. "Commander," Lieutenant Mireille's voice cut through her thoughts. "We're detecting a massive energy buildup on Vorath Prime." Yuna looked at the display. A structure on the planet's surface was glowing with power levels that should have been impossible. "What is that?" Dr. Yunji's face went pale. "It matches our historical records. The collective's final weapon. They call it the Silence. It's a planet killer." "A planet killer?" "It fires a beam that disrupts molecular bonds. Anything it touches breaks apart at the atomic level. Cities, continents, entire worlds turn to dust in seconds." Yunji swallowed hard. "And according to these readings, they're aiming it at Earth." The bridge went silent. Every officer froze. Morvax's voice came through on an open channel. He was laughing. "You think you've won, humans? You think your clever tricks and captured ships mean anything? With a single shot, I will erase your homeworld from existence. 8 billion people reduced to atoms. And there is nothing you can do to stop it." Taiho slammed his fist against his console. "We have to attack now. Destroy that weapon before it fires." "We can't," Yunji said. "It's protected by the heaviest shields on the planet. We'd need hours to break through. The weapon will be ready in 20 minutes. The crew looked to Yuna. She stood motionless, her face unreadable. Then slowly she smiled. "Dr. Yunji," she said, "please contact Team 7. Yunji blinked. "Team 7? The sleeper unit?" "Yes, tell them it's time." Understanding dawned on Yunji's face. She turned to her console and sent a coded signal. On Vorath Prime, deep beneath the planet's surface, 3 humans who had lived as collective citizens for 12 years received a message. They had been waiting a long time for this moment. "Understood," their leader replied. "The Silence will not fire." Yuna opened a channel to Morvax. "Hi, Arbiter," she said. "Before you press that button, you should know something. We found your weapon 8 years ago. We've had people inside its control facility for the past 12 years. We allowed you to keep it because we wanted you to feel safe, to feel powerful." On the unending will, Morvax's hand hovered over the firing control. "You're bluffing." "Try it," Yuna said. "Press the button. See what happens." Morvax pressed the button. Nothing happened. He pressed it again, and again. His officers ran to check the systems. Reports came back in confused fragments. The weapon was offline. Control systems disabled, security protocols locked. "That was your final card," Yuna said. "You've played it. It's gone." She paused. "Now, High Arbiter, I'm going to stop being kind." The Grand Assembly had never been so quiet. Every seat was filled. Every screen across collective space carried the live broadcast. Billions of beings watched in silence as Commander Park Yuna's image appeared before them. She stood on the bridge of the HSS Resolve, surrounded by her officers. Behind her, through the viewport, the broken remains of the collective fleet drifted in the darkness. Captain Taiho stood at her side, his arm in a medical sling from a wound he had taken in the final hours of battle. He had refused to leave her side. High Arbiter Morvax sat in his throne in the assembly, surrounded by the leaders of the 6 elder species. His face was gray and hollow, the arrogance was gone. Only fear remained. "Citizens of the Voreth Collective," Yuna began. Her voice was calm and clear. "My name is Park Yuna. I speak for humanity." She paused, letting the words settle. 60 years ago, your leaders decided to test my species. They released weapons of mass destruction on 3 of our colonies. 4 million people died, including children, elderly, families who had done nothing wrong. They died screaming while your leaders watched and took notes. Across the collective, billions of citizens heard these words. Many had never known the truth about the First Contact War. Their media had told them humans were dangerous savages who had attacked first. "We survived," Yuna continued. "We mourned our dead. We buried our children. And then we did something your leaders did not expect. We learned." Images appeared on every screen. The hidden shipyards, the captured technology, the decoded communications. Evidence of 60 years of preparation laid bare for all to see. Your leaders thought we were primitive. They thought we were stupid. They never bothered to look closely because they believed their own stories about us. That arrogance was their greatest weakness, and we used it. Morvax tried to interrupt, but his microphone was dead. Human technicians had taken control of the assembly's systems hours ago. 3 days ago, I stood in this very assembly, Yuna said. I asked for simple things: recognition of our sovereignty, fair trade, an end to encroachment in our space, the return of 12,000 hostages your patrols had seized. I asked politely. I asked with respect. Her voice hardened. You laughed at me. High Arbiter Morvax called my people a brief mistake of evolution. He offered us slavery and called it kindness. He held our children hostage and called it quarantine. Yuna stepped closer to the camera. Her eyes seemed to look directly at every viewer in the galaxy. Everything that happened after that, every station we disabled, every ship we captured, every secret we revealed, that was the consequence of your choice. You chose to mock us. You chose to threaten us. You chose war. She paused. And still, we held back. We captured your ships but let your crews live. We disabled your stations but caused no deaths. We broke through your defenses but did not bombard your cities. We had the power to kill millions. We chose not to. Morvax found his voice at last. Pretty words, he snarled. You want us to thank you for not murdering us? Yuna turned to face him directly. No. I want you to understand something very important, High Arbiter. Everything you have experienced in the last 3 days, the fear, the helplessness, the realization that everything you believed was wrong, that was me being kind, that was humanity holding back. She let the words hang in the air. We could have destroyed your fleet instead of capturing it. We could have killed your crews instead of evacuating them. We could have bombarded Vorath Prime instead of simply disabling your weapon. We could have ended your civilization in a single day. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. We chose mercy, not because we are weak, not because we are afraid. We chose mercy because we are not you. We do not kill for pride. We do not destroy for respect. We do not teach lessons with the blood of innocence. The assembly was utterly silent. Here are my terms, Yuna said. First, immediate recognition of humanity as a sovereign species with full rights under galactic law. Second, the return of all 12,000 hostages within 48 hours. Third, permanent withdrawal of collective forces from the Sol sector. Fourth, reparations for the colonies destroyed 60 years ago, not in treasure, but in truth. You will tell your people what really happened. You will teach the real history in your schools. You will remember our dead. Morvax opened his mouth to refuse. Before he could speak, the Nethix ambassador stood. "We accept," she said. Morvax spun toward her. "You do not have the authority." "The Nethix Confederation withdraws from High Arbiter Morvax's coalition," the ambassador announced. "We accept humanity's terms." One by one, the other species followed. The Vorath stood alone, their allies gone, their fleet broken, their weapon useless. Morvax looked around at the empty seats where his supporters had been. For the first time in centuries, he had no power. He was just an old man in an empty throne. "This isn't over," he said weakly. "Yes," Una replied. "It is." 3 days later, the colony ships arrived at Earth. 12,000 people walked down the ramps into sunlight, some for the first time in 14 months. Families reunited. Children ran to parents. The cheering could be heard for miles. Commander Una watched from a distance. Taiho stood beside her, his arm healing slowly. "We did it," he said. "We actually did it." "We did what we had to do," Una replied. Nothing more. She watched a little girl run into her mother's arms. The mother was crying. The girl was laughing. It was the most beautiful thing Una had ever seen. "Was it worth it?" Taiho asked. "All the planning, the hiding, the fighting?" Una thought about her grandmother, about 4 million graves on 3 dead colonies, about 60 years of secrets and preparation, about the weight she had carried every day of her life. "We never wanted to be conquerors," she said. "We just wanted them to know the truth about us. We are not prey. We never were." She turned away from the celebration and walked toward her shuttle. There was still work to do. Treaties to sign, a galaxy to navigate, a new future to build. But for now, humanity was safe. They had shown the galaxy their strength and their mercy. They had proven that kindness was not weakness. It was a choice that could be changed at any moment. And that, more than any weapon or fleet, was what would protect them in the years to come. As the HSS Resolve lifted off and set course for deep space, Captain Taiho asked one more question. "What happens now?" Commander Una looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 6 ancient species were learning to see humanity with new eyes. Some with fear, some with respect, some with something that might someday become friendship. "Now," she said, "we see what they do with their second chance." She smiled softly. "We've shown them what we can do when we're being kind. Let's hope they never have to learn what we're like when we're not." The ship jumped to hyperspace, and the stars stretched into lines of light, carrying humanity into whatever came next.